The flamenco guitar is born out of the classical guitar technique. It uses all of the classical guitar techniques, and it added other techniques to it that are born out of the rhythmic expressive necessity to give feedback to the dancing, to the singing.
Welcome everyone to the Augustine Strings Wind Up, second season. I'm Edu Gutterres, and I'm happy to be the host for this series of interviews, conversations with guitarists that are here to change strings and have a nice time. And here today we have with us the guitarist, I don't know, classical guitarist, flamenco guitarist, I don't know how you call yourself, Adam del Monte, if you want to say already, which label you relate to.
Yeah, which label? All and none of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, people, you know, for their own sake of comfort, like to categorize people on very specific labels. And my whole life I've heard that, you know, one day I'm going to have to choose between one or the other. And I had no intention of choosing one or the other. You know. My father was my first teacher, and the very first day he taught me Lagrima by Tárrega and some Soleá, some flamenco.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the very first day, I had the chip implanted in me that I was going to play both styles.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am.
That's so nice. And here you are actually in New York City. You don't live here, right? You live in California.
I live in Los Angeles.
And what are you doing here?
Well, I'm here performing the opera by Osvaldo Golijov called Aina da Mar, which means Fountain of Tears.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opera about the assassination of Lorca, as it is related to us through his good friend and famous Catalan actress Margarita Xirgu. And there is a very important guitar part in that orchestra, in that opera. There are two guitar parts, but guitar one is sort of tailor-made really for my skill set, because it requires a flamenco guitarist to be able to read music and play with an orchestra and follow a conductor. Three skills that are not necessarily compatible with each other. And so that's why I'm here, and we're doing it at no less than the Metropolitan Opera.
Yes. And I went, and it was
You
phenomenal.
came. It was so great to see you there.
And you play at the pit and on stage too, right?
That's right. I played on stage. That in this particular production, it was the first time that I played on stage. I mean, in this first production, we did it last year in Detroit, but all the other productions, I do everything in the pit.
Mm-hmm. Before I want to use this as a link, but I want to ask everyone to subscribe to the YouTube channel and to the Instagram to keep updated with all these interviews that are coming and stay in the loop. And now, like talking about opera, you're playing Osvaldo Golijov's opera. You recorded it for Deutsche Grammophon, right? But you also have your opera coming soon, right?
That's right.
And you want to explain how
Sure.
the opera works?
It's actually, well, I wrote a flamenco opera, and I wrote it after meeting my wife, actually performing Golijov's opera. That's how we met. She was the rehearsal pianist in Teatro Argentino in La Plata, in Argentina. And she was the preparer of this opera, and that's how we got together. And in one of the visits, before we actually got married and she came over to the States, she challenged me and she said, "Hey, have you ever thought of writing an opera?" You know, and so she gave me that look where I thought, don't say no, just go with it. And I said, yeah, sure. And, you know, kind of thinking quickly on my feet, I came up with a brief, quick synopsis of what the opera would be about. The name of the opera is Llantos 1492. And without getting into too many details, it's basically the story of Jews, Gypsies, Christians, and Moors in the beginning of the Spanish Inquisition. What could possibly go wrong? So anyway, it's going to be premiered. The world premiere is going to be in Albuquerque, New Mexico, performed by Opera Southwest, February 16, 19, 21, and 23. And
you playing the guitar.
And I'm playing the guitar. Definitely I have to be in the pit for that one, because I have to be very close to the whole orchestra action, because, you know, flamenco, the rhythmic tightness and precision and response and nuance has to be extremely, you know, it's very chamber music like, even though it is scored for a, you know, reasonably sized orchestra. I mean, it's a full orchestra.
keep in this topic, but just to explain to everyone who is listening, the way this interview works is for each string that you change, there will be a different topic. I know we're already talking, and the first string that we change will go into this one with this conversation. But first string is just an introduction and entree. The second one, B string, is we're going to talk about your beginnings. Third string, G string, we're going to talk about guitar, and this little thing here. We're not going to talk about now. Fourth string, we're going to talk about dreams. The fifth string, we actually asked the audience to come up with some questions for you, and I chose two to ask. And then my name is Edu with an E. The last string, E string, I can ask whatever I want. And we'll see. And by the way, we can start changing the strings actually. And Adam is using today classic.
Yes. Today
classic
and every
nylon.
day.
Today and every day.
And every day.
Normal tension and medium tension. But yeah, talking about, so did you do music and text?
Yes, I actually wrote the libretto.
Oh, nice.
I wrote the libretto because I was actually hoping that my good friend Nuria Santiago Leon, who's actually the first female gypsy novelist, she happens to also be the daughter of the world famous flamenco dancer called La Chana from Barcelona. And so she was meant to write the libretto for me. I was going to basically tell her, this is what I want to have happen. And then you just write it in a libretto. But we had really bad internet connection. So the phone bill would have come to $1 million. And the internet was just not cooperating. So I figured, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to start writing this libretto. May God help me. My wife, who's Argentinian, she corrected my grammar, my spelling mistakes and all that good stuff. But I basically just went for it.
And were you living in Spain because of music, because of the
guitar? I mean, look, my parents were wandering, bohemians, and my father is a painter first and foremost. He's also a self-taught guitarist. In the 60s and 70s, it was cheap and simple to travel around Europe, and I was an only child till I was 11, so it was kind of easy to just kind of move around, and thanks to that kind of lifestyle, I had a lot of wild experiences.
Still, talking about your opera, you're a performer guitarist, but you also compose a lot. You have 2 guitar concertos, right?
Yes.
And do you consider them also flamenco guitar concertos?
Absolutely. The idea of writing a flamenco guitar concerto was kind of born in Madrid, and I started it a little earlier than I should have, and that's why I actually aborted it when I had the idea, because I realized I didn't have quite the preparation and the maturity to do it. Eventually, when I came to the States, I kind of felt the time was right. And literally I had the conductor of the BMOP, the Boston Modern Orchestra Project from Boston, call me up and he said, I heard you were working on some concerto, and it was from a former student of mine, and the coincidence was crazy. And I was literally putting the final notes on the first movement. And
perfect timing.
Yeah. And I said, actually, I'm literally wrapping up the first movement. You want to see? Yeah, sure. So I sent him a photocopy of the first movement of the concerto, all written by hand, everything. That was pre-computers. He said, yeah, sure. Nothing that can't be done. So let's do it. And in 1999, I premiered my first concerto.
Are you planning a third one?
I am, actually.
Cool.
I am. It's kind of in the works.
Now, we're going to move on to the second string, and I want to go back to what you were talking about living in Spain.
Yeah.
And you said that you were existing with these traditions, like the gypsy tradition, the flamenco tradition. Where does classical guitar and flamenco guitar come together when you were starting guitar? Your dad taught you Lágrima, and but the formation, I don't know how to ask you this. And how important was it for you to learn these 2 traditions at the same time?
Well, I didn't question it. For me, it was totally normal, totally organic to do both. I mean, I grew up in a house where there were, the most eclectic record collection. Yes, record collection. I'm dating myself here. We had Paco de Lucia, Segovia, Sabicas, Julian Bream, Ray Charles, Jimi Hendrix, Ravi Shankar, Daniel Barenboim. you know, and I was listening to all these records all the time. You know, so I had my phases where, you know, I would listen to Moonlight Sonata like around the clock, and Ray Charles round the clock, and Paco de Lucia, of course, all the time. So, you know, that kind of exposure to different styles of music was definitely critical, you know, and I thank my father for that.
And you really enjoyed different aspects of
yeah,
each.
I just needed, you know, my musical nourishment had to be diverse like that. You know, you can't just have, you know, steak every day. You know, and so in the same way, I look at music, and that's why I play both. I actually wanted to also later on in life, you know, one of my dreams actually, I know it's part of another segment, but a dream that I will probably not achieve in this life is to learn jazz. You know, I've had some attempts to learn jazz, but I already had flamenco and classical to maintain and to improve, and it was just too much. It was just too much, and to do properly, you know.
Yeah. There are two other things that I want to ask about beginnings. One is the composition, actually, when it started. I once heard you saying that you're always composing. I don't know if it was an interview, that you're always with the guitar, like writing something or like composing small. I don't know how you phrased it.
Little falsetas. I can't remember.
Yeah, I actually don't remember where, but it was super interesting to hear you saying that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm always like composing. But how did it start for you?
My wife will kill me for admitting it, but I never studied composition. There, it's out. But by the sheer fact that I play flamenco, that pretty much by default turned me into a composer, because in order to make your mark in flamenco, you have to write your own material, you know, and it's just not satisfying for me enough to just play other people's material. And that's why I couldn't only play classical. I love classical guitar. I love it. You know, when I was doing it in college in Manchester and in Cheetham School of Music and in Israel, I mean, you know, wherever I studied it, I always had issues with you know, the repertoire. I always found kind of restrictive, and this is before now, where so much great music exists and is out in print, like Roland Diance and Sergio Assad and all these, you know, great pieces that are out there today. Back in the day, good luck finding something that really turned me on. That you know, it was hard to come by, and that's why, you know, I needed the flamenco to nourish that creative appetite that I had. You know, speaking of you know, what fed my creative appetite was, you know, living among the gypsies or the gitanos in Granada and playing in the caves of Sacromonte for the tourists. Flamenco is like, think of it as a 24-hour university. Where you're constantly bombarded by stimulus. You hear cante, you hear palmas, you see somebody dancing. Just the way the flamenco dancer, you know, crosses the street. You know, his posture is the way he walks on stage, you know. And then I remember one day, you know, as many days, I would wake up at 11 or 12 and then go up the road to Albuquerque, which is the old Jewish Arabic quarters. And on my way to having breakfast, there was a guitarist. There'd be a guitarist sitting in the corner, and he did the remate, a certain way that I didn't know before. So I'd say, hey, what's that? He said, like this. Oh, show me. And he would back and forth a couple times. That's great. Okay, there's the lesson. Next, off to breakfast.
And then you go home, you're like,
and yeah, you know. So I mean, that's how you learn flamenco. That's flamenco. You live it, you breathe it, you eat it.
Yeah, the popular traditions. I mean, I'm from Brazil, and and this like choro and samba.
It's the same.
It's the same.
You
have to be there.
Yeah.
And just like
you look, you know, I always say you don't learn flamenco, you steal flamenco. You know, and my teacher, Pepe, my main teacher, you know, is Pepe Avichuela, who's a grand master from Granada, of course. And you know, he when I would come for a lesson, he would always finish by saying, "Eres un buen ladrón. Eres muy buen ladrón. You're a good thief. You're a very good thief."
Moving to the third string, we're gonna talk about guitar and about this mics you brought today. You want to start talking about the mic?
Yeah.
I'm gonna show the camera here, and you can talk about the mic.
Yeah. So the two mic, it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's really saved my life on stage. I've used this mic, you know, in massive theaters like the Grand Theater in Shanghai, which seats like 4,000 seats and with a wireless connection. and the sound was just spectacular. You just fill the hall, and it's great because you can move around freely. And there's two basic kinds. The one that I use normally on the flamenco guitar it's called the deluxe end pin model, where you have to drill a hole, and you have two microphones one under the bridge, one under the sound hole. And that's a great solution, but the drawback with that is that it's of course married to one guitar. And you may not want to drill a guitar, an expensive guitar or anything. This is my baby, my workhorse, but my love of my life. The Eres Perlman guitar, the Negra, that he made for me. And I just love this instrument.
When you got it with this already?
No, I had it drilled.
Okay,
I asked his permission, and it really I have to say it didn't affect the guitar at all. But this mic fits in. I can let's see.
Yeah.
So it takes a minute, but once it's in, you can actually leave it in. And it's it's very friendly. Let's see. This one goes inside. This goes outside. This thing goes against the heel. Like so. It's nice and stable. And then this little rubber thing goes around the heel. And then here is a hook. You just bring the hook, and there's a little hole here inside where it just slips into it and holds it together. Let's see if we can do that without too much drama. Let's see. Okay, here you go. Boom, happened. Wow, easier than I thought. So the little one is here in the center, is in the middle of the strings, and then the external mic is out here, and it has plenty of leeway. It doesn't really interfere unless you're doing some crazy harmonics, even with the harmonics, but it has plenty of flexibility where you can put it where you want it. And look, I mean, this thing is very discreet.
Wow.
It doesn't bother at all. I didn't bring the cable today, but you just it has a L-shaped quarter-inch jack that you put in there, and that's it.
And the last thing I want to talk about this guitar, you have these things here. I don't know how you call it.
Golpe?
Can you actually tell us a little bit about this? Because I'm super curious about this technique.
I don't know. I mean, the golpe, for me, it's like, it's good morning. But like the golpe, it's an integral part of flamenco playing. And it's an integral part of the sound of flamenco, and it's very organically combined with the flamenco technique and the flamenco mechanisms. And the right hand mechanisms of flamenco are pretty much what make it, right? And all the rhythmic patterns are born out of these mechanisms. So for example, bulería, right? So these kind of moves, they're very organically integrated into the musical language that is flamenco.
And I'm right next to you, but you're hitting normally with the A finger,
yeah,
on the wood.
On the plastic.
You have a plastic there, but normally.
No, if you had a piece of wood there without the plastic, I'd be drilling a hole in this thing because it's a constant da. And then there's that what I call the big whack. There's a kind of golpe that's from above. That's why we have one above. It's pretty painful the first few times because you're literally like using the back of your nail to smack against that, and then at the same,
right before.
Yeah, I have a bit of a callus here from doing that. Well, not lately. I guess I haven't done it a lot lately, but
Let's move to the fourth string, dreams. And I think that's a big topic. I think a big dream that you have is really this.
The integration. The full integration. Without diluting, but so that they nourish each other. The flamenco and the classical world. I mean, it's no secret, and I don't mean to be rude or disrespectful, God forbid. Segovia is, probably my biggest influence, without a doubt, on my musical taste and expression. But it's no secret that he really had a beef with flamenco players, with the flamenco guitar and flamenco players. And it was kind of ambiguous because on his face, and I'm quoting him. I'm not making this up. You can find it on YouTube. I came to rescue. I won't do the accent. I came to rescue the guitar from the brutish hands of the flamencos. And there was a bit of politics involved in doing that. I perfectly understand and almost respect actually why he said that. Because definitely he wanted to bring the classical guitar into the big leagues with the violin, cello, piano
To concert halls.
So it was absolutely legitimate to say that, but it created some kind of rift between the flamenco and classical world. And that's why my whole life I heard people saying, one day you'll have to choose, and you can't do both. And even Segovia himself said you can't serve two masters. Well, to that I say, it depends who is your master. To me, my master is music in general, and the guitar, the Spanish guitar is my master. The flamenco guitar is born out of the classical guitar technique. There's no doubt, there's no negating that. It uses all of the classical guitar techniques, and it added other techniques to it that are born out of the rhythmic expressive necessity to give feedback to the dancing, to the singing. And at the same time, all these techniques, before flamenco became a very crystallized art form, it evolved from many other popular elements, like troubadour music and all these strums existed pre-flamenco. I mean, there's these documents from the Baroque and whatnot that sort of talk about different strums and whatnot. So all this was part of the popular tradition of the guitar before it, and it became codified as flamenco. And so both are sort of born at one moment, but then they sort of drifted apart little by little, and then the distance between them became bigger and bigger, both in construction and also in philosophy. Classical guitar became more and more classical, more and more obsessed with tone, quality, and delicate and cleanliness and all that. And flamenco became sort of not rougher, but it became it went more and more into the popular side of things rather than the classical side of things, because it does come from the classical. When you listen to Sabicas, when you listen to the early Paco de Lucia, when you listen to Ramon Montoya, who are all founding fathers and fundamental people, creators in the flamenco guitar, their technique, their sound is definitely very connected to the classical sound, especially Sabicas and Ramon Montoya. Paco, of course, is a whole other universe. But he came out of that universe. He wasn't born out of nowhere, But, flamenco, I think that they've been sort of flirting with each other they've been texting each other across the universe. Hey, what's up? So classical guitarists are more and more interested in rasgueado. It's like a magic trick, and the scales, and the classical are like, that's a beautiful harmony, that's beautiful sound, and the flamenco tone of solo guitar playing has become warmer, and they are more obsessed with cleanliness. Now they file their nails with the papers, with the emery papers and whatnot. And so they're finding their way back, So my dream is to promote that, to get rid of the prejudice that it has existed between the two styles and to marry them.
And of course, you're talking about flamenco, which is the thing you do, and classical. But how important do you think it is to combine a popular tradition with the classical tradition in general, not even the flamenco, but because some people will be interested in other,
whether it's Brazilian or whether it's jazz, or I think it's very important because classical music is really the evolution of popular music, obviously, and I think that there can be very easily you can come to a point where you're losing touch with the roots, in the spirit of the roots. And even when you play Bach, it's Bach suites are made up of what? Mostly dances. Dances are dances. They're not, not everything is church music, So when you play, any other popular style, especially on the guitar, I think it gives your playing another dimension that, gives it a certain level of liveliness and spontaneity that if you weren't, doing that.
Moving to the fifth string.
string.
This is the audience questions.
Okay.
And I chose two that I liked.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I'm not reading your question, but I had to choose two. First one.
Yes.
What's a good, healthy, and fun flamenco piece for a classical guitar player to practice?
Ímpetu by Mario Escudero.
Okay.
It's a great piece. You can see there's a version of Paco de Lucia play it. It's like literally the gateway drug to flamenco for classical guitarists, because it's clear enough that you can annotate, you know, pretty much exactly how it's played, because the annotation of flamenco is a whole other story. There's, as you were seeing, you know, the golpes and the right hand and the upstrokes and the ghost notes and it's always a little bit different, you know.
Even the tongue thing, or no? No, just
The tongue.
because when you play, sometimes
Oh, really?
The downbeat, and I love it.
Oh, I wasn't.
This is so cool. I think in Brazilian music we also do this sometimes.
Because I use that in pitos, you know.
When you have like you're not playing the downbeat, but you have
you're marking the rhythm to yourself, you know.
Exactly.
Whereas in classical, don't tap your foot. Why not? You know, I mean, don't bang it, you know, but you want to feel the groove in your body, you know.
Yeah. And the second question is actually I chose this one because I want to show you, I want to see you doing.
Oh, okay.
But there's a question asking you to show how the tremolo it says 4-finger tremolo technique.
Okay.
How does it work?
It's not a 4-finger, it's a 3-finger tremolo, but the I finger works overtime, and you have to pay him extra. So
yeah,
it's again, it kind of goes back to how the entirety of flamenco guitar technique, is based on the classical, but it's modified, you know, to fit, sort of to adapt to a new environment, you know. And a lot of the environment has to do with the accompaniment of the cante and accompanying the baile, the dance, you know. So the flamenco tremolo basically is P, I, A, M, I. P, I, A, M, I.
sounds so good.
That's basically it.
It sounds so good.
So it has just a slightly more sustained feeling to it, you know. Out of tune. And so on.
And I think when the classical tradition, when we're doing tremolo, is like, oh, you're just in one string, but sometimes you get 2 strings, right? Doing the tremolo, and the harmony shows.
Well, not 2 string like that.
I don't not all, but sometimes I feel like maybe like, just the M plays.
Yeah. You know, like in the middle of the mechanism, you're like winging it somehow. Yeah.
Going to the 6th string, I actually wanted to use the another technique thing, but you have a book on some techniques. Right?
Yes. I just published my first book with Mel Bay. It's called Flamenco Scale-a-thon.
Cool.
And it's you know, there's a lot of tons of exercises, and there's at the end there's like 3 little pieces that sort of put them into practice in soleá, alegría, and tangos. You know, people always ask, you know, scales. You know, how. So I kind of go in depth in terms of, you know, a lot of the physicality of it, you know, and breaking down the process on a almost molecular level, you know, because people are obsessed with it. And with all the years of experience that I've accumulated and talking to people and learning from endless people, you know, coming to my conclusions, and also, you know, borrowing and being inspired from other subjects, different sciences, neuroscience, and
Oh,
and,
cool.
and mysticism, and anything that my imagination kind of finds inspiration to inform me how to transmit and how to create pathways to improve scales is in there.
Now, maybe the last question, I don't know if the last question, but if you could talk to our audience, and I don't know if advice is the word, but like nowadays we have many people playing the guitar so well, the importance of finding your voice or your personality as an artist, and how to answer this question. It's your problem.
Yeah, well, live life. You have to, I have two sons. One plays cello, one plays violin, and one of his the last violin teacher my violinist son had, he said a very wise thing. He said, "In the end, the man wins." So what did he mean by that? In the end, the man wins. Like, there are tons of people who play amazing, have a ton of technique and this and that and everything. But in the end, the man wins, or woman.
The person.
The person wins, right? The human. I mean, so what do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? And I think the most important thing for your development as an artist is to have as many life experiences as possible. Travel, learn languages, fall in love, break your heart. Eat, drink, enjoy. And reflect, reflect on what you do. For me, it's been such a thing where, I've lived in so many different countries. I've moved around a lot as a child. My constant was the guitar. My point of center was the guitar and music. And the guitar was the one vehicle where I was able to channel all my life experiences through. And that's the bottom line. What do you have to say? And it doesn't have to be something literal. Oh, here I'm talking about blah, blah, blah. All that comes out of your subconscious, but yes, you have to open the channels to your subconscious while you play to transmit that life experience. That's what's important,
But Adam, thank you so much. You have 4 more performances, right? With the opera here in New York that you're going to use those strings for.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank everyone that was here with us watching the episode. Send to your friends this amazing episode. Change your guitar strings. Follow Augustine Strings on social media to stay in the loop. And Adam, thank you so much.
Thank you, Edu.
That was amazing.
Thank you.